All right, we're kind of making this up as we go, but this is Joe,
And Ned.
and we are the Magic Geeks, and we are going through talking about starting off with our top 5 lands between us, and we also have what we think should be in every commander deck, and we also have an honorable mention in this one. So, to start it off, we're going to kind of jump into it, and we're going to start off.
Looks like we're leading with Command Tower. Um, there are several lands that should be stock in every commander deck, and the Command Tower, for obvious reasons, it's a mana of any color. It does not come in tapped like so many of the other any color lands do. It's very useful, and every precon has a Command Tower in it.
The second one we're going to get into is Evolving Wilds. It is a land that lets you search for any basic land. If it's your first card that you play, obviously the land's going to come into play tapped, but it gives you already fixed your mana from the start. You get whatever color you want, and it's very useful to have it as a start to a commander deck. Now I can't talk all of a sudden, but yeah, it's just really good in that expense. Next
What
one's
have we got?
Terramorphic.
Next? Okay. Terramorphic Expanse is essentially the same card. You grab it for a land of any basic land type that you want, and again, it'll come into play tapped, but still very useful for mana fixing and also to thin your deck. Even if you're playing one color, I strongly recommend it because, like I say, it does thin your deck.
And the other thing that I think we both agree on is it also gives you an extra shuffle, and the extra shuffle's not a bad thing.
Agreed.
So the next one we're going to hit on to, and this is our last basic one we think we should be included in every commander deck, is Myriad Landscapes. Landscape. It does come into play tapped, but it gives you a non-color, which is still very useful because of the fact that when you tap mana for a card, you still have a basic colors that are included with it. So, let's say you do. Who do you think? My mind's going blank.
What are we talking about for colorless?
Yeah, Breck Brass. There we go. But for the colorless mana, you can use Myriad Landscapes for it. You can also pay to and tap it, and then you can get up to 2 basic lands to throw onto your main board for extra lands. You'll get an extra land. You also reshuffle, and then you still fix your mana a little bit. So when we get to our top 5 that we have, we also have an honorable mention. And I'll let you talk about this one.
Oh, are we doing the Detection Tower?
Yes, sir.
Okay, the Detection Tower is nice because that went off center.
Yeah, I know this ain't working as well as I was hoping.
The Detection Tower is nice because it when you pay one and you can hit it for colorless, or you can pay one and tap it and take away what is hexproof from all of your opponent's creatures. So if they're running things like the not the Lightning Greaves, the other thing, Swiftfoot Boots, you can take that effect away from the commander and still kill it off.
The other thing that's nice about it is the fact, how many decks do we play that have actually had hexproof, or you want to hit a commander and it's hexproof for a specific card.
Correct.
It's very, very nice. And a reshuffle. So, yeah. Mm-hmm. So now we're going to get on our top 5. I'll start it off. My first one is obviously Reliquary Towers. I tend to get frustrated at the beginning of the games when I'm short on mana, but yet I want to play with low mana because, let's say I'm playing my elf deck and I have a low amount of creatures. They're all cheap, but I don't have very much mana out. and I hate discarding. So if I ever like carry towers out, I just like the option of making it so that way I don't have to discard. I really hate it. Plus, it gives you generic mana, which is still nice in its own way. Um, it gets rid of frustration of having to discard. Or I have several decks that just want to pile up the cards on card draw, and it's really nice that way too. But I really enjoy that card.
Maze of Ith is a go-to for myself because sometimes your creatures are just overmatched, and you can tap the Maze of Ith if you've got something big and bad coming at you, and it'll be completely removed from combat. You don't have to worry about taking the damage or losing something useful that may not necessarily take out that creature, but you have other things you can do with it, like card drawing or unblockable or something like that.
Yeah, it's a very nice card. It's also irritating when you have a one-shot kill and I can't do it. My number 2, and not all these favorite cards are ones that we play, at least me. Some of my top cards are more because of how much I just like what they do. But my number 2 is the Triomes. I think there's just something nice when you play the Triome. I see 4 of them. But you have the Endatha Triome, Ketria Triome, Rogren Triome, Savai Triome, and...
Death Triumph.
my daughter says Death Triome, so that's always fun.
It's not a thing.
Where's the other one? Ha! There it is, the very last one. Zagath Triome. Really? I'm not very good with this yet. But, yeah, the Triomes are really nice. They come into play tapped, and that's kind of a downside to it. But they give you 2 different options. Number 1 is you play it. The next turn you play it, or if you have something that untaps it. There's one that for the artifact one. But you untap it, and then the next turn you're going to get 3 colors on it. It also gives you the name of the whether it's swamp, forest, island. So if you have a card that searches for a swamp, forest, island, plains, mountain, you can search out these suckers. And again, most likely if you're playing a search card, most likely you're not going to need that land on that turn anyway, most of the time. And you can you can tap it for one of 3 colors. And I think that's my favorite part about it, but also the name on the card. So it's easy to search. And then the other part is if you get a whole bunch of them out and you really don't need to play them, but you don't like what's in your hand, you can cycle them. Pay 3, discard it, and draw a card. So that's always nice. But there's 5 of them, 1 for each color, or 1 for each group of colors. And then the newer set also has 5 more, but they're not called Triomes. I'm not sure what they're called. So actually, technically, I think there's 10.
Yeah, they have covered all 10 of them with the... I'm going to call them Tri-Lands from the streets of New Capenna.
Yep.
-5.
So then we're going to go to Ned's number 2.
Boom.
Love the strip mine. I've always loved this strip mine because you can hit it for colorless, or you can use it to destroy a pesky land that your opponents have. You can cause a mana short if they only have one land that's producing a specific color, or you can get rid of something like a Maze of Ith if they're using that to keep your things under control. It's incredibly useful.
Yeah, I know I have a land destruction deck. I really like that one. And Strip Mine is one of those cards whether it's a repeat when you bring the card back, or else you just reshuffle it in and play it, or you just play it. Yeah, it's just a pain in the butt. When you get rid of lands you can't play. I agree, that's a very, very nice card. My next one is kind of a slow start, but once it hits, it is a pain in the butt. But Field of Dead. It comes into play tapped. I usually don't want to play until I have 7 different lands down, and it's the 7th one. But it creates a colorless mana, so it doesn't give you any mana fixing. But what it does do is whenever this card or another card enters the battlefield under my control, if I control 7 or more lands with different names, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. In a landfall deck, Field of the Dead is just nasty. Because you can make so many zombies, make an army, and it can come at you really quick out of nowhere.
I think there was a time you dropped 10 zombies on one turn with that stupid card. Made me so mad.
And it came out of nowhere, and we're all not happy about it.
It's true.
Well, except for me, because I was doing pretty good then. We got the next one for you, which would be this one.
Academy Ruins is a very useful card because every deck should have artifact destruction. In Academy Ruins, if you're playing blue, you can pay a colorless blue, tap it, get your artifacts back. It's also really useful if you play a lot of sacrifice artifacts because you can keep putting them back on top of your deck after you've sacrificed them for the given effect. I use Academy Ruins very effectively in one of my 60 card decks because I keep recycling the Jester's Cap, and we'll get into that in another episode, but that is an awful card by itself. But when you can keep replaying it every turn, it'll wreck your opponent's deck.
I can resemble that remark. It is not fun. I hate playing decks that lose cards, and believe me, that card has been the death of me. Literally. On many occasions. This next card I don't play a lot of, but in Commander anyway. But I absolutely just love the card. Westvale Abbey is one of those cards. I do have it in some decks, but it's not very often I get to flip it. But it does a whole lot. If you can get it to go, it is just a beast of a card. You can tap it for a colorless. I can pay 5 and tap it and pay a life, which I don't really like using because that's a lot of mana to spend just to get a 1/1 white and black human cleric creature token. But the last effect, you can pay 5 and tap it, sacrifice 5 creatures, in a land creation deck that plays black or is a proling or something like that that has black in it. You can transform it, and that's when the card really gets nasty. Again, in Commander, it's kind of hard to do because you're restricted. But when you can get it to flip, that's when it gets really fun. And it's not going to cooperate, is it? Nope. There we go. So it is Armandal Profane Prince. That's what it transforms into. And look at those little special abilities on it. Flying, Lifelink, Indestructible, Haste. And it's a 9/7. That card is a beast. And I have got that to transform in a couple different games. And that thing is just... If you can get to happen, that card is just a beast.
It's a tough pill to swallow for sure. I think you've transformed it on me a time or two, and I may have conceded the game at that point. I don't remember now, but it's very difficult to handle once it does transform.
Yeah, it was in my Lifelink or my Life Game deck. That was a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. I've only done it once or twice. I've only done it twice with that deck. Once against my daughter, who likes to just load the board, and so I was able to transform it. But I really did not use it against her. But it was still fun. If you can get that thing to transform, that creature is just a beast. Next is starting your castles.
Okay.
We're going to go to Vantress first.
Castle Vantress. Every deck I play that has blue in it has Castle Vantress. It's a fantastic card. It doesn't necessarily come into play tapped if you control an island. So you can tap it for a blue, and you can also pay 2 colorless and 2 blue to scry 2. I love scrying. I think it's even better than card drawing because it gives you better deck manipulation. It's a fantastic land, and if you play blue, I strongly recommend that it go into your deck.
Scrying is never a bad thing. My last one I got on my list is a Simic Growth Chamber. And I think it's more of necessity than anything else because I think out of all the decks I've made, I think I've made more green-blue decks than anything, and I think that's why it's the number 5 card on my list. But it comes into play tapped, and when it gets played, I usually make sure my play is done before I play my land per turn, which is this one. So that way when I bounce the land back, it's one that's already tapped. But it gives you 2 colors on 1 card. That's a hard pill to swallow if you can do that early enough. It gives you a blue and a green, and again, a lot of my decks I play have blue and green in them because green is really good at mana acceleration, blue's good at card draw and scrying and just counter spells. Blue just is that really, really good bonus color that really can support about any color, and I think it's probably one of the strongest colors in Magic, honestly. But that's it.
Yeah, and I will say they've done this for every combination of colors. It's not just blue and green. There's one for Boros, Azorius, and
Mm-hmm.
every other dual color. So if you're playing two, it is any of those are a good add to your deck because it's 2 mana out of 1 land.
But again, the reason why I picked this particular combination is because it outdoes all my other color combinations I play. Green and blue is just a massively good creature deck, and you can just go wide and card draw, and it's just you can have a lot of protection for your stuff. Last one. I gotta figure out where it's at, but this is all yours, buddy.
Castle Locthwain. This one is another I think should be stock in any deck that has black in it. Again, it doesn't necessarily enter tapped so long as you control a swamp. It gives you a black mana, or you can pay a colorless and 2 black to draw a card. Card drawing is always a good thing. And in Commander, it's not a big deal to lose life because in black you have a ton of life gaining, be it through lifelink or from draining your opponents. So it's not a tough thing to overcome, and again, it's deck acceleration, and it's also a mana of the given color.
The other thing that's really nice about a card like this, about card draw, is if you're down to 1 life and you know the other guy's going to have the game, it's an instant suicide right on the spot. You can't argue that either. I'm going to go out the way I want to go out, not the way you want to go out. And if you got enough mana open, you can add Castle Vantress with it. You can scry to make sure you have a card first, and then you can turn around and commit suicide. So you can get best of both worlds with both of those cards if you're playing blue and black together. But yeah, it's a good suicide. And I've seen that used on more than one occasion. Somebody's going to lose, they're like, oh, screw you, I'm going to kill myself. And it gets pretty fun that way.
Yeah, killing yourself is a little bit more satisfying than having the opponent do it for you.
Or milling yourself. That's always fun too. I've done that too.
I've seen this.
On the end of my turn, I'm going to mill a card. Oh, by the way, it's my next turn. Oh, crap. No cards in my library. I'm dead. Bye. And on that note, any last thoughts?
Not really. That pretty much covers our favorite lands and what we think should be stock for Commander decks. Like and subscribe, and we will see you next time. Likely talking about artifacts.
Okay, and we're going to cover a whole bunch of topics, and we got plenty of time to do it. This is Joe.
And Ned.
You guys have a good night.